The Floorless coaster by B&M, first introduced in the 90s, is similar to the sit-down coaster, but the trains do not have a floor. Riders' legs dangle while going through many inversions. These rides are usually pretty similar to each other, but some are rougher and some have unique elements, so we need to rank them up. While I haven't ridden all of them, here are all 16 Floorless coasters ranked from worst to best. Number 16, Firebird. Firebird at Six Flags America is one of 3 floorless conversions from previous stand-up coasters, and these conversions are usually underwhelming. Because the original layout was designed for standing trains, the floorless editions never really work, which is especially true with Firebird. In addition to the boring layout and being the oldest B&M with only 2 inversions, a loop and a corkscrew, Firebird is the roughest coaster on this list. The ride is small, forgettable, and bumpy. However, adding a fire effect in the second half brings up the theme a little bit. 15. Patriot. Similar to Firebird, Patriot at California's Great America was originally a stand-up coaster called Vortex. Unlike Firebird though, Patriot is smaller but much smoother. The small curved drop leads straight into a vertical loop, and after turning around, the ride gracefully speeds around the ground. Patriot flies into the second and last inversion, a corkscrew, before ending the ride. It's short but sweet, with a graceful and smooth layout. I also like the minor terrain aspect of the ride. Enthusiasts should get out to California's Great America to ride this before it closes for good. 14. Demon. This is the first floorless coaster outside the US, and it's a unique one. Located at Tivoli Gardens in Denmark, the ride has the most unique layout on the list. It's the smallest of the floorless coasters and starts similarly to Great Bear, with a helix high above the ground before entering the curved drop. A slow loop leads into the tight Immelman in the surprisingly forested setting of Copenhagen. This leads into the tightest inversion on the coaster, a 0G roll, before concluding the ride with a few turns. It's small and short, but smooth and has some good force. Number 13, Hydra. This Dorney Park floorless coaster is arguably the most unique on the list. My main problem with Hydra spawns from the strong rattle. However, the back cars don't have a rattle as strong as the front cars. The ride begins with a JoJo roll, an extremely slow barrel roll right out of the station, before climbing up and dropping down the rare straight drop without a pre-drop. Then the ride enters a series of inversions, some very unique, such as the incline dive loop and cobra roll. None of the inversions are intense except for the first dive loop, but they provide hang time and the rolls are floaty. Hydra is a good starter coaster for inversions. 12. Insane Speed. One of 3 Asian floorless coasters appears in Taiwan. Insane Speed was built in 2001, and you'll notice that 3 of these rides have similar layouts. This ride has a similar layout to an upcoming coaster called Batman, with a minor change. Insane Speed starts with a fast loop and dive loop, providing some good G's before gracefully turning into some slower turns. Finally, the ride concludes with interlocking and whippy corkscrews before entering the brake run after a helix. Insane Speed isn't very fast, but it has some good moments. 11. Hair Raiser. This arguably has the weirdest location of the bunch, as it starts off looking over the mountains in Hong Kong, but then it dives down in a concrete and industrial jungle. However, after the first loop, the ride flies into a dive loop right next to the water, making for a great visual moment. This floaty dive loop leads into the rare airtime hill, which actually provides some decent negatives, believe it or not. This leads into another floaty inversion before heading into the final inversion and Immelman. Hair Raiser concludes with a couple of turns. While the ride is a little rattly, the layout is unique and the location is beautiful. Number 10, Rougarou. Rougarou, located at the coaster capital of the world, is forgettable in their lineup, as it is another stand-up conversion. However, while Rougarou hurts your ears in the second half, the first half is great. A huge loop and dive loop provide the G's before a nice turnaround into one of the most intense inversions in the park. This incline loop stacks up a lot of positives before entering an extremely whippy transition, providing laterals and negatives. However, everything past this point is disappointing. The second half is rough, slow, and boring. Number 9, Batman the Dark Knight. This coaster, located at Six Flags New England, is most similar to the next coaster on the list, and also Insane Speed. However, there are 2 noticeable differences. First of all, Batman does not include a helix at the end of the ride, and also, instead of the slow turns, Batman features a nice 0G roll. Batman is smooth, has a whippy roll, and features all of the other whippy and intense elements that Insane Speed featured. The subtraction of a helix doesn't affect the ride experience whatsoever. Number 8, Hot Wheels Nitro. Our last Asian coaster, located in India, is the best floorless coaster with a Batman-style layout. Hot Wheels Nitro is a rare occasion where B&M does a curved drop right. It starts with a traditional drop, providing some air before whipping into a positive-filled curve. The rest of the ride is a mirrored image of Batman, the whippy dive loop, 0G roll, and corkscrews with the addition of the helix back in the ride. Hot Wheels Nitro layout extension and fantastic drop making the best Batman-style floorless. 7. Scream. This Floorless at Six Flags Magic Mountain has the worst location. It's located literally on top of old parking spaces. The layout is great, however, the rattle is not. This is not a smooth coaster, but if you can get past that, Scream has a great layout. It has a huge drop, a nice loop, dive loop, a cobra roll, and a whippy 0G roll. After the block breaks, the train dives into 2 interlocking corkscrews before whipping into the brake run. Scream is forgettable and a little bumpy, but it has a fantastic layout. 6. Dominator. This is my favorite Floorless I've ridden, and for good reason. Dominator is a huge Floorless coaster with 5 different versions. The ride has some good speed throughout, especially through the positive-filled loop and intense turn afterwards. This ride, in my opinion, is glossy smooth, with no rattle except for a tiny one in the corkscrews. Dominator is a large and long Floorless coaster with fun inversions. My favorite, believe it or not, is the cobra roll, with strong whips in and out. Number 5. Medusa. Located at the biggest amusement park in the world, Six Flags Great Adventure, is Medusa, previously known as Bizarro. This is the exact same layout as Scream, so there is no need for an extended explanation. However, Medusa has a nicer setting in the forest with a couple of thematic elements, and also is a significantly smoother experience. Number 4. Medusa. The other Medusa is located at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, and it's a more unique ride. It starts with a superior straight drop into the classic and forceful elements, a roll, loop, and dive loop. However, instead of the sometimes bumpy cobra roll, Medusa enters the smoother and more unique sea serpent roll. The ride then enters the more spread out but also more forceful second half than the other Medusa. Overall, the West Coast Medusa is superior to the East Coast Medusa. Number 3. Superman Ride of Steel. Most of you are probably unaware of this Floorless in Madrid, Spain. It's full of some of the best elements on any coaster of the model. The best element arguably is the straight first drop into the traditional Floorless elements, a strong loop, Immelman, roll, and cobra roll. However, the lack of a mid-course and addition of a huge camelback boosts the ride experience. Most Floorless coasters have just positives, but this one mixes it up. It's a strong layout with some great forces. Number 2. Superman Krypton Coaster. Another Superman takes the second spot, located at Six Flags Fiesta Texas right on the quarry wall. The setting of this ride is fantastic, as the ride has some dives off the quarry. However, this ride is not as fast-paced as the number 1 spot. The ride lacks a dive loop, but a nice loop with whippy corkscrews and rolls and a somewhat smooth cobra roll. The dives off the cliff really make this intense and long coaster shine. Number 1. Kraken. Kraken just went through a repaint and it looks great against the lake next to the ride, enhancing the setting. This ride is most similar to the Western Medusa, with a fantastic straight drop in the middle of SeaWorld. However, this ride hauls throughout the whole experience and has probably the strongest second half of any of the Floorless coasters. After the super whippy and forceful first half, the ride enters a variety of turns, tunnels, thematic water elements, and another forceful loop and corkscrew. Kraken has everything a great Floorless needs, making it deserving of the top spot. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment your ranking of the B&M Floorless coasters and have a great rest of your day.